First of all, for those of you who don't know, today is my 30th birthday. Oh, yeah! And secondly, I thought I'd film my entry to the Instructables jewellery contest. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to make a ring named Ringzilla. The materials I use for this project include a sterling silver ring liner, some toxic green kyanite, and this piece of agatized dinosaur bone. This is my entry to the Instructables jewellery contest, so I've included a link below to the contest. So if you like the video and you like the project, head on over to Instructables and vote for me in the jewellery contest. Honestly, winning the prize would be the best 30th birthday present of all time. Without further ado, let's take on Ringzilla. I wanted this ring to be nice and chunky at 10mm wide, so I took a sheet of 0.8mm silver sheet and marked a line to follow with my saw. After lubing up the blade with a bit of beeswax, my jewellery saw made quick work of cutting out the silver strip. Before the silver could be bent to shape, I needed to anneal the strip to soften the metal. I did this with my hand torch and heated the strip equally until I saw a soft glow coming off it. I allowed the strip of silver to cool down before using a half round nose pliers to bend it into a rough ring shape. To make the edges fit together nicely, I cleaned them up with a file, making sure that when I was finished, no light could shine through the seam. To clean off the oxidization from annealing, I placed the silver ring blank into a pickling solution. I took my silver out of the pickle and dipped it in bicarb of soda to neutralize the acid and give it a good rinse in water to ensure it was clean, ready for soldering. To solder the ring, I put a bit of flux and a few pieces of silver solder over the seam of the ring and proceeded to heat the silver with my hand torch. When the ring was heated equally, I focused the flame over the seam until the solder flowed into it. I allowed the silver ring to cool down and gave it another bath in the pickle before taking a rawhide mallet to hammer the ring to size. I just put it on the metal mandrel and hammered away until it was round and the right size. And so that's how I completed the silver portion of the ring. Next I'll move on to make the dinosaur bone part. So I'll be using this stuff. It's known as a dinosaur gem bone or agatized dinosaur bone. And basically it's a fossilized piece of a dinosaur that's been in the ground for millions of years and has become imbued with gemstones, so like agate and jasper and quartz. This stuff is pretty rare, but it makes a super cool material for a ring. So what I'm hoping to do for Ringzilla is actually to carve out a solid piece of dinosaur bone and inlay that through the centre of the ring. So let's see how it goes. I mounted my slab of dinosaur bone in my drill press vise and bored out a large circle using a diamond drill bit. Then I used a smaller drill bit to bore out a smaller hole inside. Unfortunately though, as you'll find out, this wasn't the best plan. No. Okay, so I'll admit that wasn't a massive success. I actually broke the dinosaur bone, but it's all good. A bit of super glue later, and I managed to fix it up enough to get it mounted on the lathe for the next stage. I marked a pencil line on the bone so I could see where to cut my slice from, and then I used a diamond cutting wheel on my rotary tool to make the cuts. This stage admittedly took a long time, but it's probably best not to rush these things. The diamond cutting wheel came in handy for flattening off the edges of the bone, and I used another grinding bit to make the inside diameter a little larger. With a bit of trial and error, I managed to get the bone to fit nicely onto the silver ring liner. By far the easiest part of this project was creating the acrylic elements of the ring. I used the same diamond drill bit to bore a hole from the acrylic block, and then just roughed out the ring on the bandsaw, being careful not to rough out my fingers in the process. To get an idea of my ring shape, I set my calipers to 3mm and scored a line using the inside diameter of the hole as a guide. For the final shaping of the acrylic pieces, I made a sanding disc mounted on a faceplate for my lathe. I stuck to my scored lines and managed to get a pretty good ring shape. I used a marking gauge to score a line in the centre of my acrylic ring and separated the two halves using a fine-toothed razor saw. Gluing up each element was probably the most intense part of the process. I simply coated each piece with a generous amount of superglue and slotted them together one by one. Epoxy resin would probably have been a better choice of adhesive, but I didn't have any, so I just used superglue. The ring was finally coming together, and all that was left to do was final shaping and a quick polish. I once again used a grinding bit on my rotary tool to remove any excess material and ensure the bone was flush with the acrylic. This took a long time. Next, I mounted the ring on a spindle on my lathe and worked over it with progressively finer grits of sandpaper to create a smooth and even finish. Again, this step took quite a while, but by the time I got the 12,000 grit micromesh, the ring was looking really nice and shiny. To bring the surface to a gleaming finish, I turned up the speed on the lathe and used 2 polishing pads with Tripoli and Rouge polishing compounds. After the rouge, I could see my own reflection in the ring. To clean up the silver inside of the ring, I used a couple of different files and grits of emery paper. I didn't want a mirror finish inside, but I did aim to create a smooth feel with no major scratches or bumps. Finally, I dipped the ring into a liver of sulfur solution for about 1 minute to oxidize the silver and give it a blackened look. And here is the beast, Ringzilla, in its final form. So that is it, guys. That is my birthday present to myself. Ringzilla is complete. And I must say, I made a few mistakes along the way, but I think it's a really cool piece of jewellery. It's definitely a conversation starter, and I learned a lot of things during this project. I hope that has inspired you guys to make something cool today. And please, if you would, go over to Instructables and vote for me in the jewellery contest. The link is below in the description. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.